Joining me now is international affairs expert and columnist with The Australian, Tom Switzer. Good to speak to you again, Tom. Is there a negotiation going on here or not? Iran denies it.
Well, Donald Trump's incentive is to calm the markets with the news of diplomatic progress. There is talk about the Pakistanis and even the Chinese putting pressure on the Iranians to come to the negotiating table. The problem, though, at this stage is that prospects for a meaningful peace deal between Tehran and Washington are virtually zero because the objectives are fundamentally incompatible.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine any deal being struck by the current regime in Iran because essentially it's an Islamist theocracy that is committed to opposition to the US and the destruction of Israel, and it would have to sacrifice its whole life's meaning to do a deal with the US. Well, is he still trying to trigger an Iran a regime displacement within Iran?
That could be one option, but by negotiating with them, he's already acknowledging that they have a certain degree of leverage. And the Iranian regime still exists, so does their nuclear program, from what we can tell, and they will seek to strive for a tough bargain. And the Iranians have made it very clear they want reparations, they want sanctions relief, and they want an ironclad commitment from the Israelis and the Americans that they don't strike again. Now, no American leader will go along with that. No. But at the same time, the Iranians have made it clear that they won't conform to Washington and Jerusalem's expectations, which is no enrichment of uranium, no ballistic missiles, and no support for their militia proxies.
So the war goes on. So is this 5-day period really an effort to calm the situation as well while he gets more military assets? That is, Trump gets more military assets into the region?
Well, as I said, he's trying to calm the markets.
That's worked, right? That's worked already, I would agree. That's right. How long it lasts is a question.
Well, that's right. He's calmed the markets at least, he's kicked the can down the road. So the oil price has gone down, markets have rallied. And he may be waiting for a time where he does take seriously the idea of regime change. But if he's serious about regime change, it means he'll have to commit ground troops, and casualties will be very unpopular in a war that is already very unpopular.
You talk about Iran having leverage. Most of that surely is the Strait of Hormuz. It seems unfathomable that America and Israel didn't have a better plan to clear the strait right at the outset, because that is where they literally bring a pincer movement to the global economy.
Well, one of the main reasons why presidents from George W. Bush right through to Trump and Biden avoided the idea of executing strikes against Iran was that they recognised in their war games that Iran with its ballistic missiles had the capability of shutting down the Straits of Hormuz, which accounts for 20% of global oil and energy. But also, it's not just the Strait of Hormuz, it's also what the Iranians are now doing, or have been doing, to US military installations and energy infrastructure all across the Sunni Gulf states.
Absolutely. Look, I'm going to ask you to perhaps do the impossible here, that is to sort of break down and interpret what Donald Trump is saying. But this one struck me as a little bit oblique. Have a listen.
Do you think I trust them? I don't trust them. They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. And it was a very big present. And they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it. So that meant one thing to me: we're dealing with the right people.
So what was this present?
I have absolutely no idea, but I think he recognises he's probably made a monumental mistake. He just assumed that by striking at Iran, killing the Ayatollah, 50 or so military generals, that would be enough to bring down the regime. He probably, in hindsight, should have followed the advice of his America First instincts and followed the advice of those intellectuals who are cautioning against going down this road.
Yeah, I'm still optimistic. I don't know why, but have a listen to the president again.
I don't want to say this, but I have to. I said, Pete and General, this thing's going to be settled very soon. Here they go. Oh, that's too bad. Pete didn't want it to be settled.
Settled very soon. I mean, why would he be saying that?
Well, he'd have to have evidence that the regime is collapsing.
About to surrender.
Or about to surrender. And, there is hardly any evidence of regime change coming about through airstrikes alone. I mean, there's Nagasaki and Hiroshima in 1945, but that's the exception to the rule. If he's serious about regime change, he needs to commit ground troops to bring down the regime and find that uranium.
Extraordinary situation and ramifications around the world as we're feeling it. Thanks for joining us, Tom.